Hello, and welcome to another episode of Stu and the Nunn, an online radio show and podcast focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We're here to give you an honest opinion, a different perspective, and hopefully a few laughs. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on our chat room, via our Facebook page, and of course, on Twitter. Keep it funky. All right, there we go, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Stu and the Nunn. You got Stu here, joined here on this February 20th with the Nunn. You see him two guys over from me, to my right, your left, as you're looking at this, and we have between us our phenomenal and guest tonight that we're very excited to welcome on, Mr. William Negley, and we don't want to waste any time, so we have him right away. I'm not even fading him in because he's a better looking gentleman than both Toby and I. So we think he brings cred to the game. What do you think, Toby?
Any strategy to up our viewership immediately by like bringing in a handsome fellow is always, probably, going to speak well to our female demographic. At least,
so
we can.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, eye candy always helps bring in people to the booth. That's all I'm going to say.
But tonight is Tuesday. We are on episode 112 of Stu and the Nunn Show. Stu and the Nunn brought to you by Enlisted 9 Fight Company that you can find on gruntstyle.com/Enlisted9 or under their collections. I'd like to give a shout out to Colton Smith, the founder, along with Sergeant Major Dan O'Brien. Colton Smith is making his return to the cage and cage fighting championships in the end of March in Hollywood, Florida at the Hard Rock Seminole Casino. But, great shout out. We always appreciate the support of Enlisted 9 as well as our other sponsors that we'll talk about later in the show. But let's get down to business because we got this gentleman for only a short period of time. William Negley is a friend of mine. I met him a couple of years ago while we were guiding a pretty good dinosaur hunt. We went and killed some dinosaurs together. And I love telling the story because his family helped support this, and it was fantastic. We were able to bring a double leg amputee and his twin brother out to their family property down near the coast of Florida. And it was a really great experience to bring these guys came in on the buddy program, Troy, twin brothers, Army infantry. One ended up losing in both his legs in combat, but they both went to combat. One lost both his legs, one did not. Their bonds remained tight while one was recovering at Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio. We were able to bring his brother, still both of them on active duty, down to do this trip together. It was a really great time. One of my favorite all-time veteran outdoor hunts. And William and a couple of his people, to include his father, who's a phenomenal gentleman, hosted us, and we had a great time. But since then, we followed each other. He's been a hardworking man, serving this nation slightly different than you and I served, Troy. William took the intelligence route, but also did the dirty intelligence route by getting down on the ground and doing it. He's worked with some guys that we won't name here, but we know, and we're just proud of guys that take that route. It's a little bit different than the route we took, but I imagine y'all stepped on some of the same soil in Afghanistan together. I did everything I could to avoid that country and spent all my time at the other one, obviously. But really excited for him to be here tonight, because not only is he a great veteran supporter, a great veteran advocate, he created an amazing program to help our brothers and sisters while they return. And then as a result of learning from that, as well as all the other national security stuff, he's running for Congress. And, today, I believe early voting starts in the primaries today, right here in the great state, the Republic of Texas. So without further ado, I've talked too much. William, welcome to the show.
No, thanks so much. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I don't know where to start after that. We certainly had a great dinosaur hunt. think some of those photos are still up on maybe on our campaign site with some of the alligators that we took. But
Oh,
yeah,
so,
thanks so much for having me on, and excited to be here and have the opportunity to talk with you guys and some of your viewers and listeners.
so let's kind of start and kind of help paint the picture for the listeners. So you grew up in the San Antonio area, primarily in Bexar County, and you went to a, a prestigious military type school down there, if I recall correctly. But instead of doing the military route, you went on, got educated, and then got recruited to go work at a pretty cool place. Why don't you walk us through how that worked for you?
Yeah, yeah. So I grew up in San Antonio. Did college, did my master's, and we may or may not have spoken about this, but my intent, aspiration, pretty much the better part of my adult life was to go into the military. And my I moved to San Diego for college, and my sister moved out there with me. I'd always thought I was going to go try and be a Marine officer, and then moved to San Diego. My sister started dating a SEAL, so I started hanging out with some SEALs, and I said, "Hey, this is a pretty cool deal." And actually ended up signing at the time they had the Budge Challenge, the SEAL Challenge contract. And shortly after signing that, a long festering back injury kind of solidified itself. And I said, "All right, I'm not going to go to Budge with a bad back. That's a losing proposition." And that was when the agency, when my time in the CIA, really it became evident that that was the path that I was going to get in the fight, because I was still very interested in serving, and 9/11 was a really significant event for me. Wanted to get in the fight, and the agency was turned out to be a pretty good way to do it.
So of course, like everybody has like this vision of what the agency really is, and I'd like to thank Matt Damon for that, and not just speaking, not just because of Jason Bourne, but I'm trying to think of the earlier movie, which was like the formation of the agency that he did.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
but I'm not gonna say it out loud because my wife might actually like Matt Damon and
He
his.
brought to the agency what Charlie Sheen brought to the Navy SEALs. Just saying.
I, yeah, that's debatable. I'm not sure what he actually brought to the SEAL community, other than like I
Good
jump
hair.
out of a jeep
Good
into
hair.
the like. But it's a fairly rigorous and intensive, not just academically, extremely rigorous academically, but it's also
Yeah,
rigorous in terms of physicality, in terms of
yeah,
strategic knowledge, and trying to put it in play. So you weren't just some guy sitting at some desk somewhere looking at things going, I think this could be this. Take it
yeah,
to your boss, enter like, a row of bureaucrats, and decision making process happens, and each person's a different decision gate. You were actually a guy that went to foreign lands, got on the ground, got embedded and immersed in the culture and the people, and tried to figure out, okay, how do we make an impact, and these are the people doing bad things, how do we like work that?
yeah. Yeah, so my time, I worked South Asia. I did time on the ground in Afghanistan in some FOBs that will remain unnamed, and then worked a lot of other South Asian countries as well. I'll leave you to figure out which ones this might be. Um, but yeah, a lot of counterterrorism work, a lot of counterintelligence work, and when the agency is doing counterterrorism work, it tends to mean that it's some top tier guys. And the thing that I really respected and loved about the agency was you were judged on your ability to advocate and push an idea. The lowest level guy, if he was bringing his A game and saying, "Hey, we need to get next to this bad dude across the border because I think he knows where XYZ other bad dude is." if you were able to sell it, and it tended to get done. So had a hell of an experience. Really learned about the threats that this country really faces, in a pretty intimate way. And of course, my reason for running now is try and bring some of that expertise to Congress, because frankly, I mean, never mind the shortage of veterans, that's bad enough. But the shortage of people that have this type of intel background is pretty stark.
So let me ask you, William. You kind of you mentioned how if someone in the agency brought a possible target or an action to everyone else, it didn't matter on their GS rating, right? It didn't matter if they were a 9 or 11 or if SES or whatever. Was that? I'm sure that was awesome to see, because everyone that was there is proven himself to be there and earned it. Are you looking to take that same kind of concept when you represent your constituents? Do you feel like you're going to take that same kind of that model with when you once you I'm not going to say if when you win
Yeah.
and go to Washington?
I like that. Yeah, look, I mean, a lot of these legislators, particularly when it comes to the intel and national security world, they're guessing, frankly, right? I mean, if you haven't worked FISA before, if you haven't been on the ground in Afghanistan, if you haven't been working these counterterrorism programs, I'm not taking away their good intentions. I'm not taking away their intelligence. But at the end of the day, you're kind of guessing, right? I mean, that is unfortunately the nature of it.
Are the briefs are the real quick? Are the briefs that are given to them, the Intelligence Committee, and those things, are the things that filter up to them? Are they truly filtered? Are just the highlights given to them, and probably not all the intel that could make a difference? Are there bureaucrats in between that decide what they should hear?
Yeah, that is inherently the case, just because of how much there is, and I think that there's two kind of different parts of what you're talking about, right? I mean, there's the politicization aspect of it. Of, are they really hearing what they need to hear? That's no doubt part of it. But it's a hell of a lot easier to know that I'm hearing what I need to hear if I have heard from this agency before, and I can look somebody in the face and say, I know that you are not telling me everything, or what you're saying just doesn't make any sense. And my concern is that is limited in its ability to happen when you don't have a lot of people who've worked this. And to the question of bringing some of that, doesn't matter what GS you are, you're getting stuff done. Look at somebody like Will Hurd. Will is done some great work. I think as his first term in Congress, or at least first 2 terms, he had more legislation passed than any other member of Congress, period. I mean, that is I would credit that predominantly to, he knows how some of these things work, and he brings some of that expertise to passing legislation.
You said something that my dad would say to me all the time, and that's that there's 2 types of people. There's people with knowledge of, and people with acquaintance with. And experience is always our best teacher. And you can understand something academically, but if you don't have the acquaintance with that subject matter, you're truly not an expert. You're just not an expert. And I really agree with you. Like, it doesn't matter how well intentioned somebody is, but we all know that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And once you've been outside this country and been on certain stretches of soil, you understand that people don't have the best of intentions for America. Americans might have the best of intentions for America. A couple of our allies might have the best of intentions for us, or at least complimentary intentions for us.
That list doesn't go too much longer. Yeah.
Right, but that's a short list, and the majority of mankind out there might not have warm intentions for America. Yeah. They all want our Major League Baseball hats, and they want to live here and eat at the Burger King and the Kentucky Fried Chicken. But inherently, they want to. There's a a decision gate that they're passing that says if I have to choose between America and doing damage to her, well, I'm going to take the damage route. And
And
I think it's important that we get people, one in Congress that say, you know, what truth is, because one of my favorite videos of a congressman, I won't name him, but as soon as I say it, everyone knows who I'm talking about. Is talking about the country of Guam, the territory of Guam, the island of Guam, and you know he's talking about it like possibly like flipping over, yeah. And you're like, you are an elected leader. You are supposed to be an intellectual, and that's what you're bringing. That's that guy is a guy receiving an intelligence brief, and what he got out of it is that if we put another 5,000 troops in Guam as a possible expeditionary force to launch at another location, the island might flip over.
Yeah.
Like we have to get those people out and get people in that'll be like, okay, here's the deal. On the ground, this person is not good, and this is what their true intentions for us are. And we might want to mitigate this by doing ...
And let me place this within my race, and I know this is something that you all have talked about. I mean, we have 17 people in this race. This is ostensibly some of the most societally engaged people in our country. One person, I believe this is right, one person has served in Afghanistan or Iraq, and you're looking at them. I mean, when 1% of this country has spent any time in uniform or spent any time in service, you know, it means it has a whole bunch of impacts on society, and my hope is to address some of them in Congress.
Let me ask you real quick, William. You bring up a good point. We talk about that a lot. The 1% or less than 1% that have served in the last 17 years of combat almost. But is it? I've always looked at that stat as kind of a dual-edged sword, right? It's it's bad in the fact that most our country does not have skin in the game like they did in World War II or previous wars.
Yeah.
But isn't it also kind of the point that they don't have skin in the game, that we've shielded our citizens from suffering the horrible things we have all seen?
Yeah.
I mean, I've always kind of been conflicted with that, because it's like, you know, they don't know how lucky they have it, and the fact that they can worry about picking which Tide Pod they want to eat and not worrying about which road they have to drive down or how far they have to walk to make maybe even vote, right?
Yeah, I mean, my take on this is, first and foremost, the professionalized military is infinitely more lethal than the alternative, right? So let's just like say up front, I don't think that we should be drafting people who have no interest in serving just because we want to do societal good, right? I mean, no, like I want the most lethal military that this country can foster, and that is a professionalized military. But yeah, it absolutely comes with some societal implications. And, you know, our 17th year in Afghanistan, if people had a better connection to what that really meant, that dude on his 12th tour, would we still be there? Maybe, maybe not. Never mind just general disengagement and a whole bunch of things about how we treat veterans and treat the military that I think is kind of troublesome.
No, you know, like you just said, 17 years. I spoke last week in Harlingen, Texas, at the Marine Military Academy down there, and I realized I was addressing kids that weren't even born when in 9/11, September 11th happened, and so they've kind of been in this bubble of time, not even comprehending what this bubble of time is. Like I remember life before 9/11. You know, like, and so it's different. But you talked about veterans, and I got to commend you. I remember you and I having a conversation. It might have been you know, over an old fashioned, which is one of my favorite cocktails,
or our fourth.
or our fourth. but you were so impassioned about how you could be of assistance, and like while you were asking me this question, we were doing something I thought fairly impactful. And I remember you listening to the concerns and the needs of that amputee that was with us, and his brother that was with us, and the other veteran that was with us. And I remember you saying like, well, how can I make an impact on that? And then it wasn't weeks later that you reached out and you were like, hey, I got this thing, I'm starting it, this is where I'm at on it.
Yeah.
Typically, like people like ask me like, hey, is this a good idea? You were like, you were already moving forward, and it was a brilliant idea. You listened to what those young men had said, and you turned around and you took it, and you were moving with it. And I gotta one, publicly commend you on Sound Off, because I think
Thank you.
the initiation of it was brilliant. The passion behind it was fantastic, and I want you to tell our
Yeah.
listening audience what it does, because one, we have a lot of guys and gals that tune in here that one would benefit from it, and two, like this is getting the word out about this is, I think, crucial, because this is a deficiency in our system,
Mhm.
and nonprofits are pulling the slack on it. But this is something that I believe that your passion in Congress can help make a real impact on.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Yeah. So 2010, 2011, we started hearing the statistics about veteran suicide come out. That's when you started hearing the 22 a day and these really shocking statistics coming out. And I was at the agency at the time, and the issue to me, and I suspect that you all kind of had the same sense, but it was intuitive to me kind of what a fundamental issue was, and that is, to grossly over generalize, you're not going to get that grizzly Navy SEAL to come and sit down on a couch and pour his feelings out. Like, I didn't need data points. I just knew that is a major barrier to getting these men and women the help they need. The agency, of course, having a very similar culture, and certainly as related to mental health, a lot of the same culture. So it seemed intuitive to me, well, why can't we get these guys the help that they need and just allow them to be anonymous the whole time? Like, not one time suicide hotline deal, but let them talk to the same person over and over and over, and just nobody knows who they are. Like, technology has made that very simple. So I was sitting in that undisclosed fob in Afghanistan, and I had been waiting for this sort of, let's call it, widget to roll out, right? I said, somebody's going to do this. Wounded Warrior Project's going to do this. VA is going to do this. Somebody is going to do this. And it never happened. And so I'm sitting in that fob, and I said, all right, well, I guess I'm going to do this. So I went on LegalZoom.com and founded the 501c3, and came back from Afghanistan, took a little time off from the agency, and started building what has now become Sound Off. And yeah, the fundamental premise is, we later got the data point that 47% of majorly depressed and PTSD veterans do not seek help.
Oh.
And so we spend $15 billion a year in this country, directly and indirectly, on veteran mental health issues, and fully half of the people that are suffering the most never seek help in the first place. So we can talk about Sound Off all night, but the sort of the narrative story is that the first 6 months, year, was building building out the framework, what's this going to cost, getting the board, all those things that you think are going to take 2 weeks and take longer than anybody expects. And we went into Warrior Project is our first fundraising meeting. And about 4 months after our first meeting, after a lot of vetting and discussions, they said, we're going to give you $2.65 million. So they were effectively going to fully fund us for 3 years. And not kidding you, 2 weeks after the CEO blesses it, their implosion began.
I'm laughing because I was like, this is a heartbreaking story. But so let's get to the good part.
So, we've now, well, let me make it more heartbreaking for you because you may not know this aspect. So that drug out over a year, but we start, kind of building it back up and fundraising and doing a bunch of stuff. And then you may not be aware of this. This past June, this issue hits really close to my family. My brother-in-law, a 20-year member, 20-year SEAL, that SEAL that my sister was dating, retired as a member of Dev Group, committed suicide in Boerne, Texas. Bill Mulder. He committed suicide in June, and we buried him in Arlington this past November. And so
I had no idea.
Yeah. So, for me, a shocking and strange experience to have been working this issue for this exact issue for years. And then the precise issue that we were trying to address. Bill did not feel comfortable seeking help because he knew or thought, I'll get panned from Dev Group. And, by the time he was out and by the time he could be seeking help, all the classic, alcoholism and family issues had hit home. And this past June, he committed suicide. So that injected obviously a whole new level of energy and passion and fire into this endeavor. And my sister's become a real big spokesperson for Sound Off, and only with her permission am I discussing this, because she, like I think, these issues need to be discussed. And I say all the time that in this congressional race, the CIA is always the top line in my bio, right? It's the sexy thing. It's what everybody talks about. I'm okay with that. I'm proud of my service. But fire in my bones, why I am doing this is because of how the VA system has utterly failed this nation's veterans in the mental health space. And to our earlier discussion, and then I'll shut up. To our earlier discussion, a lot of people are well-intentioned, but we have 17 candidates in this race, all of whom I think want to do good things for veterans. But if you haven't worked these issues, if you don't know some of the intricacies around this, then what ends up happening is you go to Congress, you write a bigger check into the VA, and nothing really changes. And that's what I'm really fiery about doing this for, is because we need some people who have worked these issues and can help break some of the things in the VA that need to be broken.
So, William, first of all, I had no idea. I was texting Troy pre the show, just to kind of share some of the background that's not in your bio, and your brother-in-law was part of that background. And I was like, hey, he's a Dev Group guy. He's kind of up on the higher end there. And so, how's your sister?
I mean, they got 3 kids, man. I mean, they're struggling through it, and But let me just take a step back to your discussion of the nonprofit space, and I think you and I could talk about nonprofit veterans issues all night long. Um, but I got to say, the support that she has received, and I'll actually, if I'm allowed, I'll actually do a shout out, because the SEAL Foundation, when Bill
Yeah.
died, knowing that, and I'll just be totally candid, I had mixed feelings about those types of kind of just straight cash distributions. I had very mixed feelings on that from the philanthropic perspective. But knowing, for Sydney to know, okay, like, the next month's worth of bills, no matter what happens, like, because it takes a month to just deal with the bureaucracy, right? To get the
Yeah.
whatever spun up. Just knowing that those things were taken care of, and that the kids' colleges are taken care of, like that sort of stuff. It's really, that's where those nonprofits come in and are just super powerful, and that has been a big help to her, setting some of those things to rest.
Well, William, I apologize as a friend for not knowing that, and I'm embarrassed that I didn't, and I admire your courage and your sister's courage for allowing you to talk about this, because this is exactly why we do what we do, right? This
Yeah,
is this is why Veteran Outdoors exists. This is why Mighty
yeah,
Oaks exists. This is why all the things we sound off exists. This is why we
yeah.
do what we do, and it just sometimes it hits a little too close, and
It. I mean, I'll when I got the call that Bill died, I called a very trusted friend of mine who's kind of been a bit of a professional counsel through Sound Off, and I said, I don't know how to do both here. I'm about to fly to Virginia Beach to be with my sister and Bill's community, and people are going to say, "What do you do for a living?" And I'm going to say, "I run a better mental health nonprofit." Like,
right.
I mean, how so believe me, I mean, this hit home in every conceivable way. But you know, again, I mean, Sydney's become an amazing advocate and spokesperson, and it just adds fire to the belly of the need to
Yes.
fix this problem. And not to repeat myself, but I got pulled out of a meeting in Austin, and somebody said, "Isn't the VA kind of like a black hole? Like, we just pour more and more money in, and nothing really changes." And I said, I'm actually almost willing to concede that point. But to me, that is precisely the reason that we need people who know what the hell they're doing, not are just well intentioned.
Yeah.
Because everybody who's well intentioned goes to Congress to support veterans. And you know what they do? Write a check.
Yeah.
And it takes money. I mean, we need money, but we need some people who can say, hey, for example, my soapbox. VA should absolutely allow veterans, allow mental health providers to engage with veterans and not have to report who they are, not have to check who they are. If you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about your clearance, if you don't have to worry about your family knowing, if you don't have to worry about the stigma of all of that, the data is clear. People are, and we know this
Yeah.
intuitively. People are more willing to engage.
Like, I mean, you just mentioned the data point, and so there's 47% of people that aren't seeking treatment. That's 47% of people that aren't seeking treatment, for a myriad of reasons. I would argue that the most substantial reason is the fear of the stigma, the fear of the repercussions, the fear of follow-on problems. If it was purely anonymous, and I think the VA have this, and this is from personal experience, and I'm a little bit biased, as Troy will probably attest here shortly. uh, I think the VA tend to think that when people engage them for mental health, that their primary reason for engaging for mental health is for a monetary or financial gain, not for emotional. And it's like, if people knew that that was a place to go to get help, and you take the financial aspect out of it, take the compensation, take the benefit out of it. If the benefit was purely help, and it was this anonymous, no questions asked, come in the back door, talk to the people that you want to talk to, you don't have to like lay your DD 214 and splash your social, and HIPAA gets all these little like flags up on it. If people knew that, and I argue this with people all the time. Police departments across the nation, even though they're decentralized, but police departments, law enforcement, and first responder agencies across the nation are able to get their people help without it affecting their career.
Yeah.
We have
Although
the
I will
largest.
say,
There are stigmas. There are a lot of stigmas. And that's not perfect.
Yeah. But they do it better.
But they do it better. And
Yeah.
we know that we're sending impressionable 18 to 36-year-old young men and women to some of the most hellacious things. And it doesn't matter if you're a finance clerk. It doesn't matter if you're a door kicker with Dev Group. It doesn't matter if you're a cook in a chow hall, because that's the most targeted place on a fob. Like everybody deserves to have this opportunity. You raised your hand, you signed your name, and this is a professional aspect of a professional force. And we have to figure this out. And the answer, isn't as easy as we think, but it's got to be better than guys and gals going to the VA, not getting what they need, and taking their life.
Or getting handed a script.
You're right. Or here, like, take this. This is going to solve your problems. That adds to the opioid crisis in America. But people aren't killing themselves in the parking lots of HEB because they didn't get the right service. And pardon that reference. You go to HEB to get a service. There's an exchange. People are doing that in VA parking lots. It's unacceptable. That should not be a location. But so how you got 17 guys in the race, guys and gals in the race. You have a leg up because of your service. You've been endorsed by, some of the biggest Texans out there. I just got a letter from Red McCombs. No big deal. So, right. So, I mean, you're obviously, things are looking good. If there's something that you can leave with their audience in terms of like, hey, this is because San Antonio is military city, USA. Like, if there's something that you can impress upon the constituents and the people, I see people in your district in our chat room right now. I'm trying to see because I think I might have a question for you from one of them. But if there's something that you could share, impress upon them that separates you, in addition to what we mentioned from those other 17, please share.
No, I mean, what I would say is, it's cliche for Republican candidates to talk about national security issues and veterans issues, right? Like every Republican candidate out there is talking about how they're going to secure this country and help veterans. And what I would say is, a lot of them didn't have time to do much of that until they started running for Congress. I have spent my professional life in service to this country, in service to the veterans of this country, as I call it, broad brush national security. That's what I've done, and it is what I intend to do. So, that is what I would say. Judge me upon. I am a conservative, period. I got a whole bunch of other conservative views that I am happy to talk about, but we're talking about veterans issues. We're talking about national security because that's what I know, and it's what is fire in my bones why I'm doing this. We've had some great endorsements. I don't know if you all you should have Jeff Adicott on the show sometime. Jeff Adicott is we're releasing an endorsement of him today. That's great to have somebody with that level of expertise talking about me. So it's a heavy race. I think we're coming into it. Early voting started today. There's a lot of just frankly politicians in the race, and that's a little bit disheartening to see. Just people who are clearly looking for the next thing, but I'm doing what I can do. I'm running my race.
So, I mean, this election, these midterms, they're huge.
Yeah.
Um, you know, you don't have to turn on any mainstream media to know that. We have some major national security issues facing our country right now.
Yeah.
Now I was stationed in Korea. I lived in Korea for a hot minute there, and
I think I was there a little bit. I think I was there a little bit before you, back when it was fun.
No, I like it. It stopped being fun on my tour. On my tour, the fun police came out, but here in America, a lot of people, they just don't understand the dynamic. And right now they're watching NBC, they're watching the Olympics, and they're like, oh, the Korean hockey team's up for a Nobel Peace Prize because they can skate together. And like you'll find no greater fans of hockey than Troy and myself. But this is the most ridiculous statement ever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, and trying to paint the leader Kim Jong Un's sister as like the darling of the Olympics, and while like their country wouldn't survive if it wasn't for the billions of dollars in rice that we feed them. While
Yeah.
this guy's developing nuclear weapons, not just to like attack us, but like to kill his cousins. I mean,
well, it's worse. It's worse than that, Toby. Today they're talking about that the athletes that are coming home without medals are in fear of losing their lives and getting tortured. Like,
well, I mean,
yeah.
that's a legitimate threat. Like think about like I don't want to digress too much, but think about like they brought over those cheerleaders, right? Those cheerleaders. Think about what those cheerleaders saw for the first time in terms of technology, non-state television, tourism, light after 8 o'clock at night,
freedom
like,
of everything, freedom of everything. Right?
Like, I mean, those poor things are all dead. Because there's no way they can go home and keep their mouths shut. Like we are we're at a critical juncture, with our national security, with things like this, and you have this expertise. So like, what are your thoughts on like this situation here? Not just there, Iran. Like we have two major axis of evil, working towards nuclear threat towards our country. Like, let's talk about that quickly if you have time.
Yeah, no, I mean, what I would say is, to sort of encapsulate this, is the world's really hot right now. Like, there's a lot going on, and this is not a good time to have people that are learning this stuff on the job, right? I mean, having some people that have spent some time thinking about this before is probably good. I'm excited to see what is happening. Maybe not excited is not the right word, but I'm proud to see what's happening in Syria, northern Iraq. I mean, I think the president's doing, really letting the military off the leash and getting done what needs to be done there to finally deal with that issue. And then, look, I mean, Iran, North Korea, the list goes on and on. My biggest thing about North Korea is this problem was left on the president's doorstep when he walked in. I mean, think about how quickly this became a topic of discussion after a couple of weeks in. So, we have just fully kicked this can down the road for decades. And I am afraid that we are somewhat reaping what we have sowed, in that we have now a nuclear armed state who's developing better and better ICBMs, and you all may know the conventional aspects there on the border. I mean, better than I do. My understanding is, if this goes hot, they're talking about being able to kill something like 1 million South Koreans in the first 30 minutes because of how many pieces of conventional artillery the North have on on DMZ. I mean, we have kicked a lot of these problems down the road, and I'm not trying to sound like a hawk or a warmonger here. That's not my intent. But doing so, pushing these issues out, have certainly blown back on us, I would say.
I almost wonder, they always say one president always leaves a note in the desk for the other president. I almost wonder if, excuse me, the one from President Obama just opened it up and just said sucker. But
enjoy this, and this.
Yeah, but I want to ask you real quick. We talk about threats.
Sure.
While we were talking, I looked over. I just saw Eric Prince, founder of Blackwater, on Tucker, talking about Afghanistan. 6,000 plus days in war in Afghanistan. 6,000 plus days, and he's saying that Afghanistan threat now is worse than it's ever been. Taliban still controls over half the country. You obviously were on the ground like I was. You did a lot of different things, but you know that same moon dust dirt. What are your thoughts on that? Being this far into it, that we are still facing such a threat. The amount of lives, both military and civilian service lives, that have been lost over there, and lives ruined. And even Afghan lives. I mean, what is your thoughts on that? 6,000 plus days in.
Yeah. Well, so let's say up front, I'm a longtime student of Eric Prince's. He's pushing an interesting solution. Basically, just turning the entire force into, I think at that point it would be undeniably a mercenary force. But no, look, I mean, I was just talking to Joe Pags about this last week. I mean, Afghanistan has just become this impossible political issue, right? I mean, no president wants to be the person to say, I'm retreating or leaving from Afghanistan. I'm leaving the country that was responsible for harboring Al Qaeda on 9/11. My underlying premise is we got to decide what our strategic end state is. What in the world are we trying to do? Let's set that end state and then match the force to it. If we are trying to prevent Afghanistan from being a safe haven for Al Qaeda or ISIS training and launching attacks, that's one force level. If we want to liberate the women of Afghanistan, prop up the democracy, and professionalize the Afghan military, that's a whole different thing. I think we as a country have had enough of trying to do the latter, right? I mean, too many lives, too much treasure. And at the end of the day, we're not going to do what it really takes to get that mission done. And if that's the case, I am all in favor of let's have the minimum, most lethal force necessary to prevent Al Qaeda, prevent ISIS, prevent these actors that are looking to attack us here from training and staging and launching attacks there. That answer, I hope that.
No, that's good. That was the opinion and perspective I was looking for.
Yeah.
So we're running short on time, William, but we have a question from, he's actually one of your constituents down the San Antonio area. And, he's a fantastic veteran. He's an infantryman. And I'm sorry, I want to make sure I read everything. Sure. He's asking, because we were talking about mental health, if he can, if you could answer what your thoughts of additional items, to help with mental health, such as service animals, service dogs primarily.
Yeah. So oxygen chamber therapy, equine therapy, service animals, and help. Let's go all in and discuss, medicinal marijuana in this context as well. There's a lot of these different things. A lot of different people have said these things really help me. I think you a little bit have to take them one by one. What I was going to say is there's never going to be enough horses to have a broad brush program to support all veterans. That doesn't mean that it is not effective and that it should not be used as a tool for those that it works for. At the legislative level, at the congressional level, what I would ultimately being focused on is what can the state do, meaning big state, do to support veterans that could apply to as many as possible, knowing that providing monetary support to some of these programs, like equine therapies, is probably prudent. Look, it would have been great if the VA had said, we're going to take 10, 20 little programs, we're going to put some money in and test them out and see how it works. I think they do some of that, probably not enough. It's I don't, I know this is not always a popular answer, but I kind of got to trust when you look at the oxygen chamber, when you look at the medicinal marijuana, when you look at some of those programs and you look at the testing that the VA has done, I kind of got to trust that a little bit. If those things were off the charts effective, I think that the VA would, one would hope that they would be the first to sign up and say, look, whatever we're doing clearly isn't working all that well. Let's find another way to do it. So where that fits with the state, with the federal government, where that fits with the nonprofit, I think there's an intersection there. But I'm certainly, look, I'm a founder of an organization that is an outside the box
Right.
addresser of these issues. So I am certainly not dogmatic in anything.
All right. Well, William, we thought we'd have you for 30 minutes. We're going on close to an hour with you. We're excited.
No.
And
we can talk about this stuff all night. We got too much to talk about.
I know. The so
it sounds like we're gonna have William back on again.
We've talked about some good stuff. And obviously, this is our listener base and viewer base is very veteran focused, very veteran centric, national security centric. But recently here in America, we get touched by tragedy. I know, I don't. It doesn't matter which cave you live in right now. Last week, we were struck with another fairly violent act by a deranged individual, and extremely violent act. And I imagine like this is something, if Facebook and Twitter are any indication of what's on people's minds, this is a hot button topic. It's one that like being from Canada and half of my my Facebook people being Canadian, I'm definitely getting like
getting it from both sides.
I'm getting beat up with what's wrong with you people, to like we don't have that problem, and and I remind them that you don't, but I can buy an AR-15 in Canada too. Everyone seems to forget that, but how are you on this point? I mean, this is Texas, so I have a pretty good idea without you saying anything where you're kind of going to go. But is this how are you on this? And well,
no. I mean, let me tie it back into our earlier discussion a little bit in mental health. I mean, I think what people are having to face a little bit is that there are a couple of characteristics to a lot of these shootings that are consistent, and one that is undeniable is the pretty significant mental health issue with basically all these shooters. So, I'm inclined to address that issue and look at those issues before coming up with anything radical new to do, because if we're not effectively, it's not just enforcement. I mean, if we are not effectively, I mean, the word is enforcing the laws and the intent of the laws, and supporting these mental health issues. Now we can add all the new laws on the books, and maybe there's some new ones that need to be made. I'm not gonna deny that. But if we can't enforce the ones we have now, then new ones are going to be irrelevant.
I think one thing that confused people. I mean, Today President Trump came out and said that he's, asking Attorney General to look at pushing in the ban on bump stocks, which I thought was curious because that was not involved, nor was,
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be like saying we should ban samurai swords. It had nothing to do with it. But and I kind of wonder, because he's definitely come across a very pro Second Amendment president. Was it just an easy bone to throw? Was it to show something, or just what the reasoning was behind that? I've been curious, and I'm not I don't know if you have an opinion one way or not, but it was just like that had nothing to do with anything. That had to do with another massacre several months ago.
Shooting.
Right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the punchline here is that everybody's reeling, no matter what tribe you may or may not fall in. I think everybody's reeling and searching for answers, and of course, there's some that default to a certain answer, and others that default to another one, and I think the answer is to look at some of the fundamental issues, in my view, in the mental health space and see how we address some of that. I mean, that's obviously my realm and my focus.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, I was just gonna say real quick. Unlike the Vegas shooting, this guy this young man had given every sign there was. Right, it was like the Vegas shooting. We still can't figure out why. This guy, short of putting up a billboard, had pretty much told everybody, and everything. I've heard a number of times, there were no laws that would have prevented this because I mean he didn't shoot his mom to take the weapon like happened in Newtown. He didn't modify something or order something he shouldn't have had. He followed every law right to the T. But unlike the Vegas shooting, he didn't stay under the radar. But a lot of other things that need to be addressed, I think. Sorry, Toby.
Well, guys, I'm going to have to wrap it up here in a few minutes. I'm not cutting this short, but no, the short version is I mean, I think that there's everybody's reeling. A lot of people are going to default to what they're going to default to.
Yeah, it's I guess it's just a life experience that kind of leads me to take a step back and not process this emotionally and try and process this rationally. And I think it doesn't matter what side of the aisle or fence or position or pole you're on here. An emotional decision's not always the best decision. But William, we are just so grateful that you were able to take the time. I know there's you recently mastered changing diapers, and you guys have grown out of that. You're getting out of that stage, and it's probably getting close to story time. So we want to make sure that you get your opportunity to do that. We just want to thank you for coming on and talking with us tonight. As a now Texan and a friend of yours, I'm just so proud of what you're doing. I'm grateful for your service. I'm proud of your aspirations here. I believe that you're the right guy, and we're excited. We hope you can come back on. You're welcome anytime. And thanks for taking the time to answer the questions from the chat room. And best of luck.
Thank you.
I saw you out there on Facebook and Twitter earlier today telling people to go vote. You heard it here. Go vote.
Early voting starts today. Primaries March 6th. NugglyForCongress.com. During early voting, you can vote at any early polling location. So, go vote.
All right. Well, William, thanks you so much.
Guys.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Thanks
Appreciate
very much.
Yep.
Y'all have a good night.
You too. Have a good night. All right. Let me throw you up there, Toby.
All right.
Oh man.
Let everyone see my mug larger.
I got me in two spots. How do I do? Wait, what's up with this?
Oh.
Okay.
You can't be like cheating and like doubling up on me like that.
There we go. I got it. I got you.
Oh, look at you. You're like, I'm Toby Nunn.
I'm both. The real Toby Nunn, please stand up. But
please stand up.
All right.
No.
What a man, that was what a show. We knew it was going to be a great one, and we knew it was going to have some awesome stuff coming out, but I think you and I were both floored there.
No, I'm so excited that we were able to get William on. That's we've said it so many times. We said it last week when we were talking about Concrete Bob. We had Matthew Burden on, and we are just so blessed. And I don't know how I got so lucky in life uh, to meet the people that I've met. And there isn't a day that goes by that I'm not reminded, or I don't see, or I don't talk to, people that I just absolutely admire, respect, and think like this is why I have to stay here, and this is why being in America is so important. There, my wife and I were having a really funny conversation yesterday night, last night, on the couch watching the United States hockey, uh, United States women's hockey team. I guess 2 nights ago, as they were advancing to the gold medal round, and I remember saying like, "Hey, look, this is why North America is the example to the world. We don't just, like honor our women. We treat everybody with pure equality. And the hockey that's coming out of the women at the Olympics is a great demonstration of that.
It's a lot better than the men's. I'll tell you that.
It's for that hashtag truth. But North America, Canada, the United States is on a different level globally. And it's because of people like William Negley. It's because people are willing to serve. Like, here's a guy that he had every intention of being an officer in the military. I think his decision to want to be a Marine officer was not the wisest, but that's because I got some great friends that are Marine officers and I like to bust their chops. He would have been a phenomenal Marine officer. This opportunity presented itself to him to be something different than that. He was able to serve, and he's bringing that knowledge base and expertise and experience back to serve his community. That's the difference. Like, serving the community, serving your brothers and sisters, and not just brothers and sisters in arms, but serving the people that are your neighbors. And like, that's why we need more people like him. And it doesn't matter what party you belong to. If that's your attitude, if that's what you want to do, and that's what truly, as he said, the fire in your bones is to serve, go do it.
Right.
And you can't be wrong. You can't be wrong.
Serving any way, serving any way you can. Maybe it's not on the front lines, doing that kind of thing, but they're when I was still in, I think one time when I was in PLDC in Korea in 1989. Yeah, that's taking it back. I remember being told by someone one time, one of the instructors, it takes if you take all the other MOSs together at that time, 12 of those people supported one infantryman, right? 12 of all, truck drivers and gas people and admin clerks and cooks, and it took 12 to support one infantryman to pound the ground, right? And so any kind of service like that is what's a merchant marine or a marine, which is merchant marines, I guess, kind of a cross between Marine and Navy, and that kind of what it is. I'm not sure, but Coast Guard, yes, we mess with coasties, but yeah, Coast Guard too. Any of that is admirable. Even working for a local nonprofit, even doing stuff locally in your community, things along that line. It doesn't always be at the national level. Soup kitchen, right? A homeless shelter, anything like that is what makes America great. That is what gives back. You're not self-consuming. You're not a consumer, right? You're a provider, even in the smallest way that can be tangible.
I spoke last week or whatever at the Marine Military Academy, Harlingen, Texas. The guy that one of the guys I was there speaking with was Jeremy Stalnick, a former Marine officer, now executive director of Mighty Oaks, and he defines leadership slightly different than how you and I define leadership. Our definition of leadership is the art of influencing a group or individual to accomplish a task by providing purpose, direction, and motivation, right? But he simply defines leadership as this: taking people from where they are to where they need to be. And that could be emotionally, that could be spiritually, that could be physically. Taking people to where they are to where they need to be. And that's what I heard tonight. Like, hey, you know, this is what we're facing. This is what's truly like, and he's passionate. Wow. Like,
Well, yeah, I mean,
I
and
was unprepared.
he was
I was
passionate.
unprepared for the news of his brother-in-law.
Yeah,
Um,
he was passionate
I
before that even happened, right? He already saw this need
yeah.
before it was
No,
such a personal touch.
No, like I said, I saw it on a Veteran Outdoors trip where he was truly seeking out how he could fill a gap, how he could bridge a gap, how he could be part of a solution versus a spectator. And that's leadership, trying to see how he could take people from where they were to where they needed to be. But it's been a long week. You know, it's been hard on social media. I know your social media is a lot like mine. We are not in echo chambers. We have a very diverse group of friends. We have a tremendously diverse group of viewers and listeners on the show, and
we have a diverse group of people that may not be friends, but we may still be connected to.
Right,
Brandon Friedman, but
yeah. just dropping Brandon's name.
Oh, I went after him this week because he put up some crap on Twitter about show me one Second Amendment veteran that can substantiate why this need to happen, blah blah, or why this guy was able to buy these guns. And then he put in, it's been 3 hours, it's been 4 hours, it's been 6 hours. Well, I commented. He never replied. I'm like, dude, you want to put a countdown clock because you put up a tweet and you're wondering why how much of pro Second Amendment people aren't replying. Well, most aren't watching you or following you. But then I put something up and he never responds, never tags, never anything. And I was like, dude, just go back to your talking points and go back to your hole.
Brandon Friedman, some of our other friends, Matt Gallagher and such, like they're, a little more left than we are.
Yeah. Takes all to make the world go round. Takes all to make the world go round.
Yeah. And, I have no,
some people are Blackhawks. Some people are Blackhawks fans or Calgary fans, right? I don't understand.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, like, there's some people that are Calgary fans out there that you can never justify that in my mind. If Mandy's watching, I love you. She's, Mandy and Nancy, they're all like in Calgary. That's why they're fans. But it's been a tough week, and there's no quick knee-jerk reaction answer. One thing I will say, though, if this issue, and the reason we're talking about is truly about the security of our children. I have children in high school. I have children that are not in high school. If this issue is truly about that, secure the schools.
Yeah.
Canonize the entry points, make them go through metal detectors, give them clear backpacks. They already have taken lockers away from kids. Most schools that are being built now are being built, sans lockers anyway, at least here in Texas. Secure the school.
Look what happened to officers. Look what happened to airports and airplanes after 9/11, right?
That's exactly
right?
Where
pilots who elected to carry went through training and they qualify and they do all that stuff. Doors got reinforced on cockpits. TSA was put in place and more increased intense screening, measures. Now, do we need all that for school? Probably not. But if you could definitely do more with the doors. They could definitely do more with the teachers who elect and are trained. So these coaches and other teachers can be more than just human shields, which was, yeah. I mean, an act of selfless service that we are forever indebted to have people like that in our society, much less teaching our children, right? Much less they were even protecting your children, which you're definitely indebted to them. But let's give them the opportunity to defend themselves, right? We know, and facts have spoken enough that even if someone just engages with a small caliber and distracts someone for long enough, it can save lives, right? And if someone is willing to do that and risk their own life to save a few others, I mean, rather than just wrapping their body around children, which is an awesome thing, but they never even have a chance.
No, I mean, there's a movie in the theaters right now about a certain train en route to Paris, where unarmed men with a little bit of training and a little bit of understanding of their surroundings were able to change that circumstance from a horrific outcome.
Right.
And I believe in my heart that the demonstration that those heroes did in Florida to not make it as bad as it could have been, if they knew more, it could have been less. And like, you want to secure schools, secure schools. You are not going to offend me by telling me that to make my child safer, they need more security, they need more metal detectors. You want to put a school board bond up to buy them, I'll be the first person to sign my name to that petition. If it's truly about that.
Right.
If it's truly about that.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't
I have a
matter.
sneaky
It doesn't.
suspicion it's not always just about that.
No.
This is an opportunity for people to try and bootstrap onto something, and I think that kind of emotional poaching, it just shows the character of the people driving that discussion.
Yeah, we saw it immediately after. I mean, before the bodies were even pulled out of the school, people were jumping on board, and we saw the same thing. We saw the same thing in many other shootings that have happened. They jumped all over it. When you don't hear a lot about is the guy that shot the 5 policemen in Dallas, right? You heard about it then, but no one ever makes a stink about that, right? No one ever makes it. They go on the ones when they can put a child or someone like that in front of stuff. But
right. And the best part is, like, they stopped that guy without a gun.
Right. C4, which works so much better. C4, much more effective.
Number 5.
Yeah.
What was that movie, Short Circuit? Number 5.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, it is a terrible thing, and it's even it is definitely driving a topic right now, because it's the way our society is, right? They go off of the 6 o'clock news, actually not even that, right? I'm aging myself. I mean, the 24-hour news to be whatever the talking points want to be. But that's why, like I say, I was confused by. I think the president's move today was just to throw a bone, right? It was almost like a filmmaker, right? You know this, Toby. Someone makes a film, they throw in some extra scenes in there they know are going to get cut, but they still want to keep it a rated R or PG-13. So they throw in some really bad stuff just to know it's going to hit the cutting room floor. So I think that's why he did it, because I kind of was like, what? Bump stock? Like, did they figure that's what it was? Like, how did that come out? But I know they have to do something. Now we have kids, and of course, what have they been showing on the news all day? These kids loading up into a bus, and someone's paying, George Soros, I don't know, someone's paying for these kids to get on a Greyhound all the way over to the capital of Florida so they can protest. How about these kids stay home and spend time with their families and stuff? Does it take them going to Florida? You don't think the governor, you don't think the Florida Congress and all of them know kind of how bad this is? I think the governor was on the ground as fast as he could get there. But it makes for great camera fodder, right? To show all these children piling into a 55 packs Greyhound bus, going across the state so they can get out and march with signs. That makes better fodder than just staying home and spending time with your loved ones and being glad that you survived.
Yeah, no, I don't think we're done with the showcasing the politicalization of these children yet. I know that George Clooney and his wife are planning to march with them, and they're spending $500,000 to get the kids from Florida to DC to continue this march. And we're going to parade these survivors around. We're going to parade some of these victims around, and they're going to toy the emotional aspect of it. But the reality is,
I learned one thing tonight. I didn't know you could buy an AR in Canada. I did not know that.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Yeah, it's a boot respect. It's a boot a background check, and it's a boot getting a permit. Yeah, you have to get a transportation permit for it, because you can buy it. You're not allowed to hunt with it. You're just allowed to use it for target practice and to look at, which makes a ton of sense to buy something just to look at.
Well, I live in New York, so I just have a flag behind me. I just look at that one. That's about all I can do because there's no way I would have one because it's illegal here now, thanks to Adolf Como and the New York Safe Act. But it goes well with my Enlisted Nine Fight Company shirt. That I gotta say is a fine piece of clothing and a great sponsor of this show.
Well, with that, again, want to thank Enlisted Nine. Want to thank Veteran Outdoors, Mighty Oaks Warrior Foundation, Pin Up for Vets, which are the nonprofits that we support. Sound Off. We're going to do everything we can to help promote them as always.
Lauren F. Bruner Foundation.
That is correct. But thanks for tuning in, everybody. We had a great guest. I really enjoyed our time with William Negley. Wish him the best in his congressional bid. I really hope that he gets it. He's not my district. I wish he was. If he was my district, I'd be out there every day hanging door hangers and doing stuff. So great show. And next week, who do we got next week?
Next week, we have Mike Scotty, filmmaker, author of a couple books, and all around, I call him the modern day Ernest Hemingway. He is quite an interesting character. Mike is back from overseas right now. He's in the States, and he'll be joining us next week to kind of talk about some of those adventures. Mike was a Marine officer, was on the invasion into Iraq in 2003, and has a lot of perspective. Is one of the smartest guys I know, and has a heart of gold. So we're looking forward to having him on next week for sure. So with that, I'm gonna just get our things queued up here. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Stu and the Nunn Show. It's 9:20, went over about 20 minutes, but you can join us every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. Here on Stu and the Nunn. Be sure you follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and again, you can watch this show across Twitch, Periscope, YouTube, Facebook, Spreaker. You can listen to it. Subscribe in iTunes. Like our page. Tell your friends. Tell your family. Tell your family that you don't think are friends. It doesn't matter. And everyone, you guys all have a great night. And here we go. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Stu and the Nunn Radio. We hope you enjoyed your time with us because we have enjoyed sharing our time with you. Be sure to check out stewandthenunn.com in addition to asking us questions and interacting with us on our Facebook page and Twitter. We look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern here on Spreaker and Facebook Live. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Warrior Media Solutions, PoohHammer.com, Veteran Outdoors, Graybeard Publishing, and Mighty Oaks Warrior Foundation. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Thank you again, and have a good night.